Hello YouTube, this is Antonio the 13th here with another small account update. And as you can see, I am down bigly. And you're probably down bigly too, unless you're a bear. But yeah, I know I mentioned in my last update that I was probably going to make these on a monthly basis, but so much just happened this week, not only in the markets, but just my portfolio that um, there's just a lot to update. And so I am making this update video and I'll probably make them weekly going forward. However, the other update videos will probably be shorter until my account gets a little bigger. But anyways, let's get to it. So as you're well aware, President Donald Trump implemented some very harsh tariffs across basically every country. And this resulted in an absolute market freefall thus far. So, yeah, there's a few changes to my portfolio here. Let's just go over some of the trades for the past week. So, um, as you can see, this says I'm down $492 for the week. Obviously, I'm down a lot more than that, but we'll get to that in a moment. So I sold a couple NVIDIA covered calls during the week, which were, of course, profitable. I was able to capitalize a little bit on this market free fall and at least collect a little premium to lower my cost basis. And as you can also see from this, I sold out of my position in Under Armour. So if you remember from last week, I was showing you in Under Armour the critical 619 level. Let's just go take a look at that here real quick. And yeah, I've got it highlighted in the orange color here. So this has been a level that we've bounced off of on Under Armour in the past, and so I was betting on another bounce off of this. And we were starting to get that until the tariff announcement, and then, of course, the stock just plummeted. So I believe I also mentioned in my last update video that even if this threshold was breached, I was comfortable still holding the stock. Well, after what I heard from the tariff announcement, I was no longer comfortable holding this stock. Under Armour, as with most apparel companies, if not all of them, do the vast majority of their clothing manufacturing in Asia. And Asian countries were some of the most hardest hit in Trump's tariffs. Now, there's a possibility that some deals get worked out and these tariffs get talked down, but who knows what's going to happen? I have to operate with the information that I have at this point. And the information that I have at this point is that a lot of these Asian countries where the clothing for Under Armour is assumably being manufactured are going to be receiving like 30-40% tariff rates on products from those countries. So that's going to be a substantial hit to Under Armour's business, which kind of was struggling already. Revenue was going sideways. Under Armour, don't get me wrong, is not like the worst company at all. There's a reason why I invested in it. But there are problems with the company and the stock. And one of those problems is revenue hasn't been growing the past couple years. It's just kind of been stagnant. And I just saw these tariffs as something that's really going to affect this stock negatively and the company. And I have very limited capital, and I only want that capital right now in the companies that can for sure weather this uncertainty. And I don't know if Under Armour is one of those companies. So I sold for a loss. And that loss, as you can see here, was a 20%, basically a 22% loss, $615. Of course, offsetting all of my premium and then some that I collected during the week. And I made one other small trade here on NVDL. I was testing out a day trading strategy that I saw on YouTube, and I'll probably continue testing that going forward with just very small amounts just to see if it's something that might work. But so it's 3 cents, nothing really to talk about, but yeah, basically a break even, but better than a loss, I suppose, especially in this market environment. So yeah, that's basically what I did during the week, at least in terms of selling things. So let's look at some of the buying that I did. So one other disclosure that I should make here is that I don't know if you remember from last week's update, but on my NVIDIA position, I had about a $1,700 margin balance. I used some margin to buy some of those NVIDIA shares. So during the week before the tariff announcement, I deposited $1,700 from my savings into this account to sort of clear out that margin balance. And so I cleared out the margin that I had, and I had like 14 grand or so in buying power at the time. And I was like, you know what? I've got all of this margin sitting here that I could be using, and AMD, and this was before the tariff drop, mind you. I was thinking AMD was sitting at a pretty good price at 101. So I decided to use the extra margin that I had there to buy AMD shares so that I can have another position to sell covered calls off of. Now, given what we know now with the, tariff drop and all that, you're probably thinking I'm an idiot. But I'm still not certain that it was a bad move. I still I still don't think it's a bad move. Now, could I have gotten it at it being AMD? Could I have gotten it at a much better price had I waited for the post-tariff, fallout? Yeah, of course. But that's not information I had at the time. So, um, so I did a little digging. Why I made this purchase is, first of all, if I take out 10 grand of margin, I used an online calculator to calculate how much interest I would be paying in margin, um, on that 10 grand balance. And this is, of course, assuming that I just kept the 10 grand balance throughout the entire year and didn't apply any of my savings to bring that down, which I will. And it's also not accounting for the covered call premium that I'm going to bring, which will also bring the margin balance down. But if I just held 10 grand in margin for an entire year, I would be charged $500 in interest. Between $500 and $600 in interest is what the calculator told me. So I think that is, in a worst case scenario, that is a reasonable price to pay in order to have 100 shares of a reliable company that I can sell covered calls on. And I know I'm going to be able to continue putting savings into this. So that plus the premium that I'm going to be collecting off of these shares, I know I'll be getting that money back. And I know market sentiment is really terrible right now. So say what you will, but AMD, Nvidia, unless some really awful, catastrophic black swan event happens, neither of these companies are going anywhere, even with the tariffs. Now, they might not do as well in business as they had pre-tariffs, of course, but they're still not going anywhere. They're still the major players in the GPU space, both of these. And AMD specifically is a major player in the desktop CPU space. So I was willing to go and spend the margin on these shares. So after getting rid of that $1,700 margin balance, I've now got a 10 grand or so margin balance for the AMD shares, which you can see here. Now, the margin used is a little lower here than 10 grand because I sold my Under Armour position, and what was left from that went towards this margin balance. So now I have $7.8 thousand, 7.9 basically, in margin. So yeah, that's where that was the only purchase basically, other than that day trade that I did for the week. I have no free money, so I won't be doing any more purchasing, which is sad because there's a lot of things on a good discount right now, but that's just how it is. So yeah, for the week, accounting for my $1,700 deposit, you can see before the big drop, I was up to 1,400. So this will obviously account for that deposit I made. And after that, now I'm down to 10 grand. So I'm down 25%, $3,500. Yeah, it was absolutely brutal this week. So what am I going to be doing this coming week? Basically, despite how negative things seem right now, I'm not, as I've kind of alluded to, I'm not selling either one of these positions. I'm in these companies for the long haul. I think they're sticking around. I think it would be foolish of me to sell these right now and realize my loss. Now, we could be going down a lot further, and that's a risk, certainly. But that's a risk I'm willing to take. I am certain that these companies, whether it takes a week or a month or a year or 5 years, I'm confident these companies will eventually regain their share values and that one day I'll be sitting on a profit. And I'm sure it'll be faster than 5 years, especially when I'm continuing to sell covered calls on these positions and lowered my cost basis. So that said, you've probably noticed there's no options positions in my list here. And that's because I did not sell any on Friday. So if we go to the charts real quick, so this is for NVIDIA, and as you can see here, we're sitting in an oversold territory here on the RSI. And we've also broken down below our trend that we've had here for about almost basically since the start of 2025. So yeah, we're really oversold here, and I why I hesitate to sell a covered call is because I anticipate that with the sentiment being as negative as it is, once there is any inkling of hope that tariffs might be rolled back um, or basically negotiated down in terms of severity, there's a very good chance that we see a good rally come out of that. And if I'm selling covered calls right now, basically I would be selling covered calls around the 106, 107 strike in order to get around $100, if I recall correctly. Let's check that real quick. This is after hours market, obviously, so the numbers aren't going to be 100% applicable, but they will be ballpark. So let's say I wanted to sell a call here, and I'm usually looking to take about $100. So in this case, it's about the 20 delta, and that is at the 105 strike. So even closer to what the current price is than I was thinking. So if we were to be at 105 here for my strike, that's pretty close considering that this stock is currently oversold on the RSI, and we could see a movement that brings us out of that oversold zone and closer towards this middle line in the Bollinger Band, right? Because this oftentimes will act as a gravity, especially when stock prices fall outside of the upper or lower bands of the Bollinger Band. We'll see a snapback in prices to be within that band and then potentially come up to the middle band. And the middle band right now is at 112. So basically, if I were to sell that at 105, I would only have 1, 2 levels of resistance between me and, between being in the money and where the current stock price is. And if some news gets announced before market open on Monday morning, it's very possible we gap up. It's also very possible that we, continue gapping down and maybe even go below this level of right now support at 88. And then I would have 3 levels of resistance, and then, I could have made money off that. That's also a potential possibility. However, I didn't want to take that risk. So I am going to wait for a little bit of a rally. I might be waiting a while, but that is what I'm going to wait for, to where I can sell a covered call that's going to be either at this middle Bollinger Band or a little above it. That would be my preference. And as I said, I plan on holding these positions, so I'm not in any hurry to rush myself into selling calls at a strike that might get me in trouble pretty quickly if the market decides to rally on some hopes. So, yeah. So that's NVIDIA. I'll just show AMD real quickly to show that that's basically in the same scenario. We're oversold, down a couple resistance levels here between, where the current price is and where the middle line in the Bollinger Band is. So yeah, I'm basically just going to sit tight here, continue to take my beatings and, you know, live to fight another day. And I think that's all I can do. I can't control the president or his tariffs or anything else he might do or say that may make the market go up or down. Don't have any control over any of that. All I can do is deal with the environment as it is currently. And so, yeah, I'm going to hold these stocks because they're good companies and continue to sell covered calls as I can. So, yeah, I think I've covered everything. So, thank you for watching, and I will update you again next week. And I hope that you're in a much better position than I am. Hopefully, you're not down 25%. Hopefully, you're looking better than I am. And yeah, thanks for watching.